Welcome to Washington Maritime Careers. I'm Ann Avary, Director of the Center of Excellence for Marine Manufacturing and Technology. With me today to talk about welding careers in the maritime, agriculture, and natural resource and construction industries is Joe Young. Joe is Senior Manager of Workforce Development for the American Welding Society, or AWS. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Ann. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to today's conversation. I think there's a lot to talk about, and certainly showcasing some of the efforts underway. I mean, it's good stuff. It's a great initiative.
Well, thank you, and it's a pleasure to have you here today. We really appreciate it. Normally, we're talking only about the maritime industry. So today, our conversation is going to be a bit more expansive. We're also joined by, I'm just going to say it, my partners in crime. These are two of my great colleagues. We're joined by Sarah Patterson. Sarah's Workforce Development Director for the Associated General Contractors Education Foundation.
Thank you, Ann. I appreciate you having me here today, and I look forward to this conversation.
And Lindsey Williams, Director of the Center of Excellence for Agriculture and Natural Resource.
Super happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
Each of our organizations is also a Career Connect Washington sector lead. And because of our collaborative work, we've come together with some key K-12 partners in rural communities to develop this statewide model welding and fabrication framework. So we're absolutely delighted that Joe is here today to share information about AWS and welding careers in general. So Lindsey and Sarah, welcome, and thank you so much for being with us today. Okay, let's just jump right into it. I think, Joe, can you talk to us about what the American Welding Society is and your role at AWS?
Absolutely. So the American Welding Society is an industry association that's based out of Miami, Florida. We are about 60,000 members strong, and that runs the gamut of individual members to corporations to educators and education institutions. Ultimately, our goal is to support the welding industry, keep it going, keep it strong. My role is I actually work in the American Welding Society Foundation. So our efforts are solely philanthropic, and we are essentially the boots on the ground for the next generation and creating awareness and supporting the future workforce. We've accomplished that through really three major programs, and that's scholarships, grants, and workforce development. And I'm going to share a little bit about that as we kind of go in, but we're very fortunate. The welding community is remarkably strong and committed to finding individuals to support our industry. And the thing we're facing right now is the labor market. It's tight, and there's not a lot of people, and we need them from all walks of life, every corner of the U.S., in the world, really, at this point, to come in and pick up the welding hood and carry the trade forward.
That's awesome. And what a great introduction to what AWS is and what you do. And in our work, Lindsey and Sarah and I know from our industry engagement and our partner engagement in general, there continues to be a very high demand for the welding skill set, and it's showing absolutely no signs of slowing down. So Joe, can you take a minute and talk to us about what AWS does to raise awareness about careers in welding?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of like I said, we got three flagship programs, and those are the scholarships, the grants, and workforce development. We're very fortunate that we have a strong donor and contribution, and really historically we've kind of started out since 1989, so we've been at this for a little bit, and as time went on, we grew into a very impactful organization. And the foundation is really blessed with having the ability of this year to award over $2.5 million in scholarships to nearly 1,700 students. So those scholarships run the gamut of the welders. If you're going to a certificate program, an associate's degree, all the way up to engineering. So we run it all the way across the board. Some students can receive up to and over $10,000 in scholarships from our programs and how they're established and what's available. Our grant program is really centric to focusing on the schools. So our scholarships are for the students and educators and professional development, of course. But the grants program is for welding education for schools. So we really want to make an impact at the institution. In the grant program, we award up to $25,000 in funding to bolster your infrastructure, your welding program, and all of the things that are involved with that. So welding machine updates, maybe you're looking to expand a couple welding booths, but the goal really is for us to bring more individuals into the industry. So if that grant is going to grow your program by a certain percentage, or maybe a couple booths or a few students a year, that's what we're after. We need more, and we want to give you the funding to make sure that we can support that. And the final bit is workforce development, right? So that runs the gamut. That's kind of the open space, the big sandbox, and how do we continue to make sure that welding is on the forefront? We're making sure that we're representing not only the importance of it, but the opportunity that comes along with it for our future. So we have one of our biggest factors or biggest tools in that arena is we have a 53-foot expandable trailer, and it's the Careers in Welding mobile experience. And this travels around the U.S. 18 weeks out of the year, and it hits fairs, career events, and big attended events across the U.S. And we schedule this, and it goes out every year. We have two sponsors, Lincoln Electric and Build Submarines. And they believe in what we do and the message that we're, putting out into the world about welding careers and opportunities. So on this trailer, you have virtual welding machines. Individuals can come learn about welding, learn about the career opportunities, try their hand at it virtually, which is exciting. So we get, kids, parents, welders that are in the industry. And one of the biggest takeaways is while that trailer's at an event, we offer a daily $1,000 scholarship. So there's kind of a little competition going on, right? So we have individuals that are, trying to score the highest on those machines, and whoever gets the top score will be eligible to receive a $1,000 scholarship. So, we award quite a bit of funding to that. So it's really, we're trying to give back, recruit individuals, get that message out there, and really use that tool to its full potential. Now, outside of all of that, we're involved in other, more workforce development, traditional pathways. Right now, we're trying to support the development and rollout of national guideline standards for apprenticeship. Apprenticeships are very much a traditional way of learning the craft, and we're trying to equip employers with the proper tools, models, and information so that they can take that to the local and state level and roll that out if they need that. That's been quite an undertaking. We're really trying to hit the top occupations that are in demand. So combination welders or welders, and welding inspection, and we're working on one for welding automation. Technology is extremely prevalent right now in the workforce, manufacturing, and we need to have visibility, and we need to have the right tools to train that future workforce. And of course, we try to support everything else in between, whether that's career fairs. We have jobsinwelding.com. It's really a site for employers, folks looking for work in welding. We have welding workforce data, which covers all of the metrics of the industry, gives you a snapshot of demographics, the demand, the projections, kind of what we're facing. And then we have careersinwelding.com, which is basically a giant resource for what is welding? What does a career in welding look like? And I think that's important because really what we do is we break it down. The skill of welding can be applied all over the place. So what does a career path look like in a certain industry or a certain profile? So we broke that down into 15 career profiles. So you can see, hey, if you want to go into engineering, what does that look like? What does my education path? What does that journey include? So it's a great site. It's, got a little tool on it, which is fantastic. It kind of gives you the opportunity to match your desires, likes, and interests. And then it gives you a career profile. So if I went through it, I might get iron worker or pipeline welder, or whatever the case may be. So it kind of gives you some suggestions to look at based on if you like travel, do you like to work alone, do you like to be a part of a team, or whatever the case may be. So, and those are just a few examples. Of course, we're really just trying to be a conduit for education industry, and as an industry association, that's our main goal, and just be a voice for welding and its future workforce.
That's amazing. I'm sitting there, I'm kind of blown away by all that information. We definitely want to talk to you more about getting that trailer up here in Washington State for sure.
Absolutely.
And you've kind of touched on the next question. So if I could ask you to go into a little bit more detail about what that welding pathway looks like. Where would someone enter that pathway? And then can you talk a little bit about some of the careers along that pathway?
Yeah, and absolutely. So I think a lot of folks, maybe have a misconception about welding. And, I cut my teeth in this trade. I actually started off as a helper. So I didn't, go to school to become a welder until I kind of learned about the opportunities that were in it and how you could kind of navigate through it. And, really it wasn't a stagnant or just a single, well, I'm going to be a welder for the rest of my life. You can advance, you can move forward, and there's all kinds of opportunities. So somebody who's looking to get into this trade, there's many ways you can do it. I would say for me, in my experience, I would recommend, going to post-secondary education, a community college, some type of institution that can teach you how to weld. If you have the opportunity to learn the fundamentals and the skills of welding at high school or through an ag program or whatever the case may be, maybe through a Skills USA or FFA, a student organization, all of those are great. And I think taking advantage of that, getting that exposure early on to ensure that you like it and it's something you're interested in, really will dictate your pathway into the future. For me, I went through and was unsure of what I wanted to do after high school. I worked in a industrial setting where we manufactured pressure vessels, and I discovered as a helper cutting material, moving packaging stuff, that the welders seemed to have a pretty good gig. They had nice vehicles. They had almost this ego about them, that there was like a culture with them. It was kind of like a cult. And I was like, what do they got going on over there? They're just a really cool group of folks that I was curious about, So I learned more about welding through work. At that point in my life, I kind of was able to kind of become more of like an apprentice, I guess you would say, and just learn the ropes of doing small little welding things. And then I went to school. I decided, hey, I'm interested in this enough that I want to pursue a career in it. So I understood that there was certifications. And that's something I think a lot of folks should consider. If you're going to go to school, ensure that the program has alignment to industry credentials, right? American Welding Society has a handful of certifications available for welders, inspection, and beyond. And I think that it's important, whatever path you choose, ensure that you're kind of hitting the marks and getting the industry recognized credentials, because when it comes time to hit the workforce or maybe change positions, you have something on the resume now that proves you have the skills, the confidence, and the competencies established so that you can move forward in that opportunity, whatever it is. But it's so back to, circle back, did start off as a welder. And then I found out, hey, there's quality assurance, there's weld quality. Somebody really is, making sure that my welds are good. That's the inspection side. Oh, I want to do that. I think that's pretty cool, So I get into that and become a certified welding inspector and then go down that path. And then I enjoy education, and I kind of went into education, and then that led to workforce development where I'm at here today. So long story short, I started off and kind of kept climbing the ladder until I kind of fell into something I like. I always followed whatever I enjoyed and just poured my heart into it. And the welding community is really what I thrive in, because the people around you are very excited and passionate about it as well. So I think that's important. And if you just want to weld, that's awesome. By all means, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to weld for a little bit and say, you know what, I think I want to do inspection, we need you. We need inspectors. We need that. If you're interested in education. You're like, hey, I really want to be in an ag program. I want to teach welding and ag mechanics and other things. By all means, we need handfuls of those folks too. So I think there's opportunity. And then when you look at industries in your local area, whether you're in the Pacific Northwest, you're in the Southeast, you're in the Northeast, or you're in smack dab right in the middle of the US, there is probably somewhere where welding is happening. And you would be blown away by the technology, the industries it impacts, and where you can go with it. Everything from paper mills to power generation to the manufacturing of just about any metal item, whether it's a computer, a vehicle, an airplane, you're going to have welding. So I think if there's industries you're really captivated by and you're interested in those things, you like welding, I guarantee it, you'll probably be able to find an opportunity in whatever role position it is in those industries. So even theme parks, right? You could work at Disney inspecting welds, or being an engineer to design amusement parks. I mean, there's all kinds of wild opportunities out there, and metal, steels, all of that is used widely in our world today. So yeah, I think it's really just being aware, and then do your research, right? What's out there? Do I want to be close to home? Do I want to travel? I guarantee whatever your interest is, welding can have some type of pathway for you. So that's kind of the gist of it. I know it was kind of long and overdrawn, but yeah, everybody certainly has opportunity here.
I absolutely love it. I mean, that the message here is there is obviously no shortage of opportunity in that welding space, and that's a big message we really want to send. And so, when we do our work individually, Lindsey with Ag and Natural Resource, and Sarah with Construction, and me in Maritime, we work really hard individually and then collectively as part of this project to promote the skilled technical trades across communities. Obviously, in this case, welding and fabrication. And and our focus for this project right now is rural Washington. And so my next question for you, Joe, is around the work that AWS does across communities, whether it's rural or indigenous communities, communities of color, women, veterans communities. What does AWS do to promote these incredible careers across communities to get that word out?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been very active in that space. And I would say that it runs the gamut. We've done activities to support, initiatives that were going on in tribal communities and trying to bring awareness to welding careers and education opportunities in that environment. I think one of the biggest and most impactful things and measurable things that we've done is through our scholarships. And believe it or not, this past year, we awarded $2.5 million, to nearly 1,700 students, and nearly 30% of those scholarships went to females. So the voice and the message is hitting all ears. And I think that's important. There is a huge need for skilled crafts folks in this country. And, we need everybody. It's not just for one group, one society, or whatever the case may be. It's for everyone, and we need you. And I think what you'll come to find is the folks that are in it are excited to pay it forward too. Having somebody younger that's hungry, that we can train and we can say, hey, this is how you get better. This is how you can carry the torch. We're excited for that. And I know I am, but it's awesome for us to see that the impact we're making, especially with the American Welding Society Foundation, and how far and wide it is being spread. So I thought that was a fantastic figure and measurable, item just to attract, women into our trade. It's important, and we need to keep doing that.
That's awesome. The work you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. You mentioned earlier in our conversation, there's a site, if I wrote it down correctly, called careersinwelding.com, where folks can go and learn more about careers in welding. Where else can people go to learn more about not just welding careers, but about the work of AWS in general?
Absolutely. So aws.org, you can learn just about everything the organization does, what our mission is, how we carry that out. A big part of what we do on the society side is codes and standards. Those regulate the industries, the quality of welds, our certifications. Well, how can you advance in your career? And those industry recognized credentials that we offer are globally recognized. You can learn more about that. Our foundation, you can learn about that too underneath the About tab. It'll link you out there, how the impact we make. There's a report that we issue every year, and it's called the Impact Report. And the easiest way to find it is just use the search feature on the site and type in Impact Report, and you'll see the latest one come up. And what it does is it highlights all of the philanthropic work we've done, in the past year. We thank our donors, and we showcase really the highlights of the important work we're doing. And you can kind of see, how it's every year it just keeps getting more and more impactful. So aws.org, we have one thing I would say is kind of interesting or is really remarkable, right? Is we now offer free student memberships. So students that are going to welding school or becoming interested, we offer that. And that's, we're giving you access to some of the benefits of a member. And so they can learn and advance in their career. So, we think that's important to kind of nurture our future. And it's something we would encourage not only welding educators, but students themselves that are interested to register and become a student member.
Fantastic. And I think that, we're really excited about this cross-sector pathway because there's a really strong nexus among our three industry sectors. And I'm really grateful, Lindsey and I both are, if I could speak for you for a second, Lindsey, that Sarah, our resident welding expert, our resident welder, reached out to you to engage with AWS on this project. So this is kind of a two-part question for you, Joe. So again, we're excited about the cross-sector collaboration among our industries. How do you see an organization like AWS supporting something like this? And why is it important to look at not just one single industry sector, but to look at across, to take on a cross-sector project?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So I'll try to answer it in two pieces, I suppose. So having, I think, that national oversight and involvement is critical, right? You're really the bottleneck from all industries. So the American Welding Society is very fortunate. Welding is widespread and it touches everything, from, shipping, maritime industries to agricultural to natural resources, power generation, sanitation, medical gas. I mean, there is just an absolute web of knowledge and wisdom that we have. And we're very fortunate to have very engaged volunteers that support the development of standards and publications and codes that are used in our industry that are done collaboratively. So that culture, when we have an opportunity to engage in a project like this, we want to pay it forward, right? So we want to be involved to say, hey, look, this is what we've seen done in other areas, in other states that have followed the same model. It works out wonderfully. We're here for the benefit of the future workforce. We don't want to have, it's, AWS everything. This is what is going to be the best solution for the students, the schools, in the local industry to upskill their students to be more impactful in the workforce. And that's what we're here for. And that's what we want to do. And that's the message that, mission wise, that we're going to follow. So of course there's always a margin, but always follow the mission and the rest will come. And that's, essentially why it's important to be a part of this project. And we're really thrilled about it. And it will be impactful. And I think the end result's going to be remarkable. And it's really laying the groundwork to help tie everything together, right? So now you're bringing in local industry, the local skill sets and the local needs, and kind of molding that together to get the perfect outcome. But you're also thinking about the bigger picture in the process. What's going on around us that we also need to be aware of for these individuals that are going to learn this craft. And if they move on maybe to another region in the, states or whatever the case may be, will they be prepared for that? And that's important too. So I think having, the blinders off, aligning everything and keeping that cadence is going to be really critical. And it's awesome to hear. And I think it, needs to be done. So the second bit, if I remember correctly, was about the framework, right? Or did I answer that? I don't know if I touched on that at all.
You kind of did, but I think it's, you really did. You talked about the importance of the collaboration. I know you're sharing so much information. It's just, it's amazing. But I don't want to interrupt you. If you've got more to share about that, that's great.
No. I think, the framework that you're establishing and, that's going to be, rolled out, kind of like I said, it's about the mission, right? And we want to bring the best quality and best opportunity to those students, those educators, and align everything. And having, a background in industry recognized credentials and kind of making sure that those are being, and it just doesn't come from the American Welding Society. You have API, ASME, OSHA, MSHA. You have all kinds of other entities out there that need to be recognized, because this individual, if somebody, I always think about myself kind of going through and becoming a welder and on that journey. Somebody was doing the legwork and the groundwork that you folks were all doing. I mean, as a student, to have that type of structure, I mean, you're coming out of it like a slingshot, and that's going to help you advance your career. And it's going to take time and, some of those trials out of that picture that, you're going to be better prepared. So, and I think it will take time, but I think that once it's rolled out, I think it'll be a wonderful model. And I bet you others will probably come knocking on the door. Hey, how'd you do that? And you'll see kind of the measure of it, because then they'll want to duplicate it and kind of continue and observe it, and roll it out in their own local regions. So yeah, it's very important. And it's really important to recognize all the industries involved, right? You got to have a lot of seats at the table, and you got to collect all of that information. And it's important to do that. And you may not get feedback you like, but it's progress. And you have to kind of work through it, but it'll be good. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be an exciting endeavor, and it's certainly very important.
Thank you. Yeah, we hope so too. We hope others want to emulate this. We've got one more question, but before I get to that, because this interview is a little bit different today, I want to open it up to my partners, Lindsey and Sarah. Do either of you have a question or comment for Joe?
I do. Well, first comment, thank you, Joe. This has been really enlightening for me. And I know a little bit about welding and a little bit about the pathways, but it's always good to hear more. I'm curious about barriers to entry, and if you see those or what they look like, and how potentially the K-12 system or higher ed could be good at addressing those, or could we debunk some of them? Are there some that you hear a lot that are just, no, that's not reality?
Yeah, of course. Well, obviously, thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, of course, it's, I think barriers are always going to be there. And whichever angle they come from or however they're presented, it's going to come down to a couple of things. One, I think the educator is really the catalyst of all of it. So if the educator is well prepared, well informed, and has what I call ammunition to help fight battles and tear down barriers, that's key number one, and that barrier could be administration. That barrier could be, local industry. That barrier could be something beyond. And realistically, it's how do we prepare the educator so that they can be that champion for their students? And I don't know, and like I said, there's always going to be barriers, but if we can be better stewards of our educators and really prepare them and really make them stronger, ready, and have a lot more access to resources, tools to better prepare them for the classroom, the industry, and their future. I think that's really the key. And one way we try to tackle that within the foundation or the American Welding Society is we offer educator specific scholarships. So these educators can advance in their career, right? So we give them professional development. So one barrier might be, well, I have a local industry member, but they're not hiring my students because they're not qualified or certified. Well, we'll offer you a scholarship. You can go earn your certified welding educator or your certified welding inspector credential. Now you can prepare the students with those certified welder credentials in that process. And now they have an entryway into industry and far more prepared. They're paying it forward, right? We offer data, statistics for educators that may be facing, budget restrictions. Wow, this program costs too much money. We're going to have to cut it back. Well, here's the demand. Look at the amount of welders that we have in our local region. Look at the career opportunities and look at the well-paying jobs these students are getting. Are you sure you want to cut that pipeline off? So we have to prepare them, give them, the ammunition. And if they're good stewards, and most educators are very passionate about what they do, and they'll knock down walls, and they'll, brick by brick, if they have to, move forward. And I think that's kind of, in my mind, where I tend to lean when it comes to barriers. Obviously, as an industry as a whole, kind of, the traditional challenges that we've seen, we need to kind of erase that and move forward. And, that will come with time, and we're certainly working towards it. And I think, as time goes on, change will happen. But yeah, they're going to be there, but being optimistic and equipping, at that education level is going to be important moving forward.
Thank you. That is awesome. And I have seen educators knock down barriers and knock down these walls. So 100% on board. And yeah, anytime we can get everybody the education they need to support their students, that's always exciting.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Sarah.
Lindsey, that was a great question. Joe, what I want to talk about is, what do you see in 10 to 15 years emerging careers in the welding industry that we're not thinking about right now because we're still really focused on the infrastructure piece, the shipbuilding piece, all of those other aspects you talked about? Because really, I used to challenge my students, name one thing that isn't touched or affected by welding. And you can pretty much shoot down anything they say, because in some way, form, or fashion, welding has touched everything in your life, whether it's the coffee mug you drink out of because the truck that shipped it to you had a welded axle. But 10 to 15 years down the road, where do you think you see welding careers that we don't even, the emergence of new careers and new pathways, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so great question. And absolutely. So I'll give you an example. Last week we had it's like an annual trade show. It's called FabTech, and this kind of highlights welding, metal forming, coatings in one big area. And when I first started going to this exposition, it was probably 10 years ago, when you would walk the show floor and you were checking things out, it was, what's the next latest and greatest welding machine? What's, every company had the new bells and whistles. Now you walk and it's automation, collaborative robots. It's what technology is doing and how fast it's advanced between, I would say, 2018 to now is remarkable. And if I, am looking at the crystal ball correctly, and I may be wrong, but I really think that it's to survive and really to advance in, this industry, probably from an employer side, you're going to have to adopt that technology, automation, collaborative robots in some capacity to, depending on your industry, obviously, but you're not going to get rid of the welder. But I believe that the automation and the influence of technology will begin to make more of a prevalent impact, especially on the career side. When we look probably at job postings as they go forward through, metrics and data, you'll probably say, hey, can you use a collaborative robot? Must be proficient in welding automation, because companies are going to start seeking those tools and implementing them on the shop floor or in whatever environment they're doing. So that's technology is coming, it's there. I think it's not quite, exposed at the level it should, but it is chipping away at the traditional, I think, workforce that we've seen. So, and it's great. I mean, some of the stuff that technology is doing is really taking away, kind of, in my mind, to kind of frankly put it, the beating that you took as a welder, just doing very repetitious, hard, laborious, weld transition or whatever the case may be. Now you have equipment that can kind of handle some of that. And that's great. I think, that you're not going to tear somebody up doing it, but I don't think you'll ever get rid of the welder. There's always going to have to be one piece that needs to be known, and that's the robot can make the weld, but it really doesn't know how to weld. So you need to have an individual who understands the fundamentals of welding. What is a good weld? Is it really making a quality weld so that there's that human element to it? Yeah, if they can operate it, program it, and implement it, man, you're going to be a rock star. And I think those that are maybe coming into the industry right now that see that and say, hey, I'm going to get into this automation outfit and I'm going to figure out when they integrate this technology into certain industries, they get into it early. I guarantee you'll probably be around for a good long, you'll make your money pretty quick. And I think that's one thing that's lucrative about the welding industry is, the compensation is there. If you find a niche market and you're a skilled welder, you can live the American dream and then some. It'll take care of you. But technology's coming, and I think that the opportunity to really take advantage of that, and we'll watch how it emerges in certain industries, obviously manufacturing, but I believe there's probably going to be others that'll come up that we may not have thought about or really, gave a look at. Like, wow, I couldn't believe they automated that process. That's remarkable. You know what I mean? So I think that's coming. It's just a matter of time and really resources. So, but yeah, automation, it's on the radar. So maybe if we connect in 5 years from now, we'll have a big update on it. Hopefully I'm right, but I could be wrong.
No, I appreciate that answer, and I appreciate the positive outlook on that automation as opposed to the doom and gloom of it's going to take all the welding jobs. Absolutely, it's not. It's going to make welding jobs safer for a lot of folks, and it's also going to mean a different application of your welding skill set, but it's never going to replace a qualified, skilled, trained welder. So thank you for that answer.
Absolutely. And I'll add on just a little bit about that. So you can always look at automation. There's like a hard line in the sand. There's folks that are like against it and like it's going to take all the jobs. Then there's folks that see it optimistically, and I kind of straddle the line a little bit. But one thing I will say is this, if I'm, as a small business owner, I look at this and I say, well, if I implement this technology and I can put additional revenue into my business, now I can start looking into other markets. And I'm going to have to hire more people to come work for me to take on that kind of work. So in effect, that machine or that robot may now have created 2 jobs out of one position or one, whatever the case may be, one, role or, one operation was satisfied, but now I have opened up 3 jobs doing something else because I'm in a new market trying to make additional revenue and growing the business, So that's kind of something that I think folks kind of tend to maybe forget about, the opportunity, right? From a business standpoint or an employer standpoint, but it's also professionally as an individual, if you can learn the technology, you're only going to improve yourself. Avoiding it and walking away from it, you're not going to gain anything. Learn it, become competent with it. Now you have that on your resume and you can continue to advance. So just something to think about. But yeah, absolutely. Great question.
Great answer. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. I think, Joe, your passion and enthusiasm for welding is so evident. And it's just a delight to talk with you. I think this is our last question. And normally I ask somebody why they're excited about the future of the maritime industry. So we're going to change that up a little bit because we're talking about 3 industries today. Can you talk tell us why you're excited about the future of welding. What excites you about this career and looking into the future?
Well, it's kind of like, in my mind, it's almost like a new frontier, right? Um, we are on the cusp of technology is starting to meet the traditions of welding in a way that I don't think anybody's really ever anticipated. So I'm excited to see how that unfolds. I'm excited to see how careers change, how businesses adapt, how the quality of welding improves from where it is now. And, you know, it's incredible to think, the advancements is, and really even like, let's say the aerospace and defense industry, the advances that they've made in the past 10 years is remarkable. Now we're kind of seeing that in the everyday manufacturing of, automobiles or, you know, even simple structures. It's remarkable. And that's kind of what excites me about it. That's what I'm curious about. That's what, I'm passionate about it. And you're always going to have that human element and the community of welders and the culture that, this industry has, how that kind of grows and adapts is going to be just a joy along the way. So those that are passionate about this, I mean, you can tell. And when you're around or you're in the same room with them, they're just excited about it. And, we could talk welding for days if we wanted to, but I know that does bore some people, so I won't leave it long drawn out. But I'm excited for the new frontier of how welding is going to be impacted by technology and what, the future holds. And of course, sticking to the traditions of the welding culture and community. It's going to be good.
Love it. I absolutely love it. Sarah and Lindsey, thank you so much for being part of the interview today. I've really enjoyed that. Maybe I'll have to con you into future interviews too. Joe, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to meet you, to just hear you talk about welding as a career and your obvious passion for the career. It's been absolutely fantastic. And as we go down the road in this project, I hope that we're able to come back together again and kind of continue this conversation. So thank you again so much for being here and sharing all of the work you're doing, your expertise, and again, your passion for this career. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I applaud you all for your efforts underway, with the initiative and the framework that's being developed. It takes that grassroots effort right there to continue moving the needle. So thank you for all you're doing.